there was Tennessee, their opponent. There's some things you can learn from this game and take away. And I think Oklahoma kind of set the blueprint of how to slow down this offense in Nico, but minus Dylan Sampson. But, Arkansas followed that blueprint. But for Tennessee, what would you have liked to see more of from the offense this game?
From the offense, I think, the O-line, I don't think played very well. We talked on the flip side about Arkansas getting to the quarterback often. I don't think that the outside of the line was playing as strong as they could. The tackles were giving up a lot of pressures on the edge. The pocket was collapsing on Nico quite often. And we know when he has time to sit in the pocket and pick defenses apart, he's really solid at that. But as a younger guy, the awareness maybe isn't there. We saw him go out of bounds at the end of the game.
Yeah.
We've seen some strip sacks here and there and a couple poor plays. He has so much talent, but when you don't want to have the pocket collapsing on him and forcing him to improvise and extend plays. It felt like the passing scheme kind of fit the way the O-line was playing. There was a lot more shorter passes, whereas in previous games, you've seen him air it out. So I think from them, it just didn't feel like the identity was there offensively. You mentioned Oklahoma kind of painted the blueprint for that. So maybe that is their identity. So
yeah,
they're two big tests, Oklahoma and Arkansas here. They haven't really performed offensively to the degree that you would like to see.
Yeah, no, and in this game, it was a game that they weren't really as bailed out as much defensively as we see in the past, like you've mentioned against Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
On the defensive side, it felt like Arkansas was having their way from a big play perspective. You saw it with that big 26-yard catch from Jaquindon Jackson to get them out of the red zone. You saw it with another big throw to Andrew Armstrong, 30-yard catch later in the game to kind of keep the chains moving. They were averaging 9.9 yards a pass given up, and Arkansas had over 6 receivers averaging 14 yards a catch. You're pretty much giving up a first down every time the ball's in the air, and that's not going to be a way to win games. But the thing is, if you watch this game, and I'm sure people who are listening watched it, they were still able to get a lead in the third. Dylan Sampson, he pretty much took over and had 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, big 53-yard run, and was able to kind of punch it in the end on that same drive. They still have enough to win offensively. It's just they need to make less mistakes, like you mentioned, turning the ball over on the offense. Not being aware of the time left in the game when you're running for a 4-yard scamper when you need to get the ball in the air, right? But it just seems like on both sides they just didn't give their best game. Like, it wasn't their worst game, but it was not good enough when you're playing a team like Arkansas and you're on the road and you have given them some life. You've let them have a lead for 2 quarters. You've given them the idea that they can win this game, and they showed that, okay, like, if you're gonna give us a chance to win it, we'll win it.
Yeah. And I mentioned it with the Arkansas bit and shoulda, coulda, woulda, but Arkansas could have put way more points. The fourth down at the beginning of the game where they kicked the field goal as opposed to getting the touchdown there. He looked open with a better pass to score. They missed the field goal. They went for it on the 4th and 1 in field goal range. That could have been another 3 points on the board or more if they would have converted it.
Yep.
So there were a lot more opportunities even for Arkansas to extend this. You get the opportunity. You never want to see an injury, but you get the opportunity where you bring in a quarterback who the only time we've really seen him play in a big game this year, Malachi Singleton, he didn't play very well. Yep. They bring him in, Jaquindon Jackson's out of the game for a little bit as well, and you still let them get a full drive together. They let him score at the end for sure, but you let them get to that point. So the defense, I don't think, was really firing as well as they could have. The run game, Dylan Sampson played well. Aside from that 53-yard run that he had, it was a pretty average day for him. That kind of was a huge bunch of his yards. That was the bright spot, though. So you have the pieces. You mentioned it. You have the blueprint. You have the pieces if you're Tennessee to do what you need to do. It's just putting it all together on the field. And I think the offense firing is the big one. Brew McCoy, kind of a late bloomer in the game. They didn't get him involved super early.
And I guess another silver lining is, like, Lisa, you're watching that last drive and you see Nico make this big 42-yard throw to Dante Thornton. So you see the ability for him to make these plays and this 2-minute drill type situation, which is what you're going to have to deal with, during this season, playing teams like UGA and like Alabama coming up here in 2 weeks. And so that's a bright spot, I would say. Obviously he didn't finish the drive, but he got them in position. That's beautiful throw. Like, being able to evade, that potential sack to make that great pass. And so something to build upon there for Tennessee, but definitely a tough loss to take when you had that game control in the third quarter and just couldn't really, keep it.
Yeah. And now you have Florida next week, which, last time they played, Florida kind of gave it to them. Not a huge win, but big win for Florida last time they played. It was behind Etienne, who's no longer there, so they don't have to worry about him.
Yep.
Tennessee maybe a couple of weeks ago was looking ahead to the Alabama game in 2 weeks, but now this Florida one, with the way that they're firing, means a little bit more and takes a little bit more focus. And I think the offense is going to need to step up in this game, especially in the passing game, because Florida is starting to, move some pieces and getting better.
Yeah, and Florida, the last 2 games is definitely shown a little bit more of improvement defensively against Mississippi State and against UCF. I wanted to say Arkansas because they have KJ Jefferson, but I knew it was UCF, of course. But they've shown some improvement defensively, and now the blueprint's been laid out twice when it comes to slowing down Tennessee's offense. But Dylan Sampson's still a dog, and he did show us that in that game, and so. It'll be interesting how they do these next 3 games. This is a massive, important stretch of the season. If you get out of this stretch, 2-1, if you beat Bama, you're really set. But you beat Florida, you beat UK, you lose to Bama. I think you're still in playoff contention. So we'll see.